Can you hear us very well? Probably this, after introducing the guest, Jyoti will start the presentation, start the camp. Maybe there won't be any echo or better clarity afterwards. I want to introduce Jyoti Paraiswamy, an AI expert. He is the Chief Data Scientist, Lead Instructor at the University of California, and AI Learning Facilitator at MIT, and also the head of AI Experify, the Harvard Innovation Lab. So he has 19 plus years experience and he has done so many camps around the world. So I'm glad to have him here in the locally, and he's here to present the AI camp for the second time at this place with the Gen AI. So the guest, Rita is Rita is already here. Rita Das is the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer at the City of Rancho Cordova. She oversees information technology and innovation. She has a background in government service, spans over 2 decades, encompassing a wide range of roles within state, local, and federal agencies. She worked for the Secretary of State, providing election and cybersecurity solutions for California. Under her leadership, there were 0 reported critical incidents in the 2016 and 2018 elections. Without further ado, just I want to introduce all the guests and invite one after other to share their maybe to address the attendees. And we have another guest. Ajay Gupta, Chief Digital Information Officer. Thank you for being here to join the camp and address attendees. Yeah, without further ado, I'll invite Rita Das. Please come over and say a few words. Thank you for coming on the weekend.
Oh, of course, actually. My pleasure. I'm so excited to be here. So, first of all, I would like to commend everyone that are here today. I know it's Sunday afternoon and you are all here. You could be somewhere else, but you're here. You choose to be here with us to grow, learn, and invest in your future. So this shows, especially to our high schoolers, dedication, commitment, and drive. These are all qualities to take you far in life. So first of all, I would like to thank Savida International Foundation for organizing this event and for bringing this opportunity to students here in Rancho Cordova. A huge shout out to Jyoti and his team, for sharing their experience and then also guiding through your exciting AI journey. So they're going to be helping us. So first I would like to introduce again myself. I'm Rita Das and I'm the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer here at the City of Rancho Cordova. As I mentioned, I have decades of experience working in technology in different departments within the state of California, mostly the state of California. But now I have the privilege of leading the innovation here in the city of Rancho Cordova. So it's super exciting to me. So technology is my passion. And I know firsthand how technology shapes the future. So I would like to share with you why I like my position here at the city of Rancho Cordova. So first of all, our city mayor, Mayor Polopati, and our city council members and city manager are all incredibly supportive of technology and AI education. They believe innovation will shape the future not only for the city, but also for everyone else here today. That's why I'm thrilled to see all of you and those the one participating online to have hands-on experience with generative AI. So what is AI? Especially these questions for the high schoolers and this. How many have used AI? All right, okay, so anyways, this is gonna be exciting for you. AI is not just about robots and science fiction. It is everywhere. Even our virtual meetings and all that stuff. Everything is now using AI. And so it's everywhere. It helps doctors, saves lives. It assists in making video games more exciting. It helps create music and art. But most of all, it helps our cities as well to run smarter. So if you notice, the key word here that I use is assist, because AI is a tool, it's not a replacement. Some people are concerned because it will replace things. No, it's not. You're gonna hear from Sophie and on the team on all of those, right? So that's why this is exciting. So the city of Rancho Cordova embraces innovation. We are into the whole innovation, so everybody knows that, and you knows that we want to be innovation. That's why the city supports program like this. This is the program that we support to give you the tools, knowledge, and confidence to shape the future. So we invest in AI, cybersecurity, cloud technology, and would like our young minds, such as yours, to be part of this journey. So with that, I would like to challenge all the high schoolers who's participating in this program. Be sure to be curious, okay? Ask as many questions as you want to ask. There's no bad question, stupid question, no, just ask. Also be bold. And most of you have not used AI yet, but if you have, start using something new. They're gonna give you guys all the exercise that will be exciting. And also, be okay to make mistakes, because that is how we learn. So make sure, all of this, do it, okay? The future is not something that happens. We create the future. So embrace this moment, take this opportunity, and most importantly, make sure to have fun. In the next two days, have fun, and then enjoy the journey. So with that, thank you for your time and commitment, and for inviting me here. And just to say that City of Rancho Cordova supports this. All the best, and continue learning, and keep innovating. With that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rita, for being here and addressing the attendees. Now I invite Ajay Gupta, Chief Digital Transformation Officer, to say a few words.
I just want to say a few words about Ajay. Ajay and myself worked together at Deloitte, and we also worked together at KPMG. I've known him for 25 years, close to. The one thing that I can say without any hesitation, the only executive that I have seen in my life who can get to the level of code, deal with the problem. At the same time, strategically thinking about solving problems, correct? I found something that very unique and innovative, and I feel that you all should follow him as a role model, correct? So something that you will enjoy working with him in all aspects. You learn technology, you learn leadership skills, you learn strategic thinking, you also learn thought leadership, correct? So that is how I see Ajay. I request him to come and speak in front of you. It's just not about me talking the technology, it's also hearing from industry. So Ajay currently implements generative AI for the state of California. And DME made a lot of remarkable things, and most of you already know. And he's the one implemented generative AI. The license plate that you apply for, let's say if you're looking for a specialized license plate, that license plate is fully automated. A 9-month backlog becomes current. That's because it's innovation. Okay? And also he implemented the mobile driver's license. A lot of things he's done innovatively at DMV. I thought it would be good to hear from him, understand from an industry point of view how these are all working, and also you could position yourself in case in the future if you want to become something like Ajay, correct? So what it takes to get there. So that's why I requested. Without any further delay, I request Ajay to speak a few words about how he transitioned himself into this role that what he's in right now, because it's a career transition. And also giving you a tool for you to understand, as well as the steps what it takes to get there, something that what he's done so far. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie. Thanks for all the kind words. Yeah, I've known Jyoti since 1998, maybe.
1998.
99? All right, so you can count how many years it's been. And yeah, Jyoti and I have crossed paths multiple times in my career doing consulting work for state governments across the US. Texas, California, Maine, Oregon, Hawaii, and a few more that I can't think of right now, New Jersey. But let me start by saying thank you to the city for doing this fun event. Everybody's curious about what generative AI is, but important thing is how curious are you, how committed you are. So for Suvidha International for sharing or creating this platform for sharing, and for City to create this platform for the high schoolers to come in and learn more, and more importantly, like Rita said, for high schoolers to be here on a Sunday. And I was thinking, I can't remember when I was growing up on a Sunday if I've shown up to my school except to play in the soccer field or cricket field. But it's pretty remarkable nowadays. Kids are very, very committed, and this shows here on a Sunday afternoon. So Jyoti specifically said no slides, so I wasn't really sure how to make it interactive. So as I was going for my morning run, I'm like, okay, well, we'll start by asking a few questions, and then I'm going to deep dive into the things that we are doing, that we know, and then a lot more questions, hopefully, from the audience. And the virtual audience that's also there. Just a sound check on virtual audience. Can you all hear us okay? I don't know if there's a thumbs up or any way for you to tell us. Yeah? No? Okay, so audio is not really clear for the virtual participants. That's unfortunate. I don't know if it could be closer to like a mic. Where is the mic for the thing?
Laptop, I can basically the audio is
Okay.
on the laptop, and PC, maybe Jyoti would be fine, I think.
I can, as I'm talking, I can also stay close to the laptop. Is it on a, it's connected to a bunch of wires. I'll just stand here.
Yeah,
Um,
the laptop audio would be great.
Yeah, so is this the mic?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's, it's better, yeah. So the mic range is not that great. Okay, well, hopefully you all are okay, me standing here on the side. Okay, great. So I did want to ask the same question that Rita asked earlier. How many of you are using, you believe you're using, well, let's go with AI, I think you're using in daily life, whether you know it or not. Let's talk about how many of you are using generative AI on your day-to-day work, whether it's for fun, for school. Do you all want to raise your hands? Give me an example. Okay, let's start with second row here.
I have this app called Do It, and it usually like summarizes the texts that I'm learning.
Okay, so the for the virtual audience, there's an app called Know It, and it's used to summarize text. Okay, great. Yeah, I guess that's pretty typical use of it. What are you summarizing? What are you sending it to summarize?
Like textbook information.
Textbook. So you tell it you upload a textbook, or
Like I copy and paste the text, and I
Copy and
say
paste.
summarize and rephrase.
okay, great. So you just put in a bunch of text, and then it provides information. Okay, great. Anybody else? Any other examples? Okay.
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. Okay. What kind of questions do you typically ask ChatGPT?
Something that I need help on, like maybe summarizing some topics for me when I'm writing something.
Okay. Are you a writer or?
No,
Okay.
I work for DMV, by the way.
You work for the DMV. So are you using it for work, or are you using?
No,
Okay.
for my personal.
Okay. So you're writing something, and maybe you have a writer's block, and you're like, well, I have these 5 ideas, and let somebody go to the internet, find the best searches. Give me a summary of what that would be. Okay, yeah, I think that's a great example. Anybody else? Row 1.
So I work for the state of California, and anything that's outward facing has to be in plain language. So we use, I use, it's called Hemingway to make sure that it's at the 8th grade reading level for the general public.
Okay, so Hemingway is another tool to make it 8th grade language or simplified language for general public for websites and memos and things like that, is that right? Okay, so those are great examples. So people are using it, as it becomes available. A lot of summarization, a lot of content extraction and synthesis, right at the end of the day. So, so Jyoti gave an example of what we did. I think ours was probably the first Gen AI implementation that went public from a state entity in California. And that was merely to just help our own backlog of when people ask for specialized license plates. They would, you have up to 7 characters or whatever, and they're very creative with what they would want in. We have people sitting, and it's a 2-person process, and going through, various search engines, figuring out whether it's an offensive word, whether it's something that will be sensitive to certain populations, etc. And context also changes, and I have a pretty interesting example. Some of the unfortunate example, because you may have issued something in the past, but now in the current context, say October 11th, October 10th. It was, October 7th. It was not an issue before, but it became an issue later. So how do we tackle some of those kind of contextualized, sensitive things that are now becoming relevant? And same is true for different languages and things like that. So I was looking for essentially a content filter. But then Jyoti and I were talking, and Jyoti was already doing experimentation for generative AI. And one thing that I liked about, so few things about generative AI. So I'm going to pause there with this story and then go back with generative AI. So we talk about AI, a buzzword for machine learning, right? Neural networks, machine learning. A buzzword for, in my mind, a rather boring topic of statistics. Everybody used to hate statistics when we were growing up. I had to go through 6 semesters of statistics in my electrical engineering. And I appreciate it because it was able to help me make certain decisions, running regression and things like that. And then came in machine learning, multiple regression. I did some work for my dad who was doing some cost estimation and modeling, and we use multiple regression there and matrix inversion, bunch of math, right? And then the next thing you hear is now you have these neural networks and machine learning, which was like still coming up when I had just left college. And then came in deep learning, where you throw in a bunch of data and it gives you some model and answers, and it tells you whether something is fitting a particular pattern or a model. Now, then came in the word AI, which essentially obfuscated all this machine learning, deep learning into some practical things, like somebody listening to your sound and converting it to a bunch of areas of text, right? So speech to text, or text to speech, somebody converting what you're writing into actual sounds. Computer vision, right? So you were able to identify certain patterns and do something with it. So those were the patterns that people would typically call AI, right? But those were essentially what I would call as search patterns and matching patterns. There was no particular synthesis of information. It essentially knew that it matches this pattern, then you kind of define what it would do. But there was no, let's call it thinking on the fly, which is what generative AI is really all about. It's generating content based on the previous content that was created. The thing about generative AI, because of the computing power that we have, these things called large language model came about, where you have all this data feeding in from the entire internet, right? When Google started, entire internet could fit into 3 gigabytes, I believe, or something like that, right? It was very small. But now content is crazy. There's like huge data centers running, burning energy every day just to kind of keep up with all this content that's coming in via many different channels. You got text, you got video, you got audio, 3D objects, and so on. So it's become very interesting and very powerful. So the large language models kind of took it into, because of this very fast computing capabilities, took us into this realm of now you can synthesize content because I have all these things. Based on that, now I can generate content for you. If you go to Bing or Google Gemini or just do a Google search now, if you have enabled the Google Gemini on your search engine, it will actually summarize it for you. Bing uses OpenAI, Google uses Gemini, and so on, but it'll give you results. And now they've started to also put in, previously it would give you results, now it's started to put in context. That, okay, this is where I'm getting the result from. Makes it a little bit interesting, right, for you to validate. But essentially what it's doing is it's taking search results of your first few pages and then summarizing, and then now also giving you links so you can actually validate those, that is it coming from the right source or it just made stuff up from a bad website, which can totally still happen, right? So it does not have any new content. So now let's unpause the story for the customized license plates. So when Jyoti and I were talking, my interest was different languages. I was going to GitHub and others and finding bad words in different languages, like Armenian, German, and whatnot. And then came in LLM, like, wait, it has actually ingested all these languages already, so it could actually answer my simple questions like, is this a bad word in this language? Is this a bad word in this language if I replace the numbers with letters, etc.? So doing some prompt engineering, we were able to figure out this answer. It obviously is not cheap, but it's definitely cheaper than a human sitting there doing this work. We still have human review because AI is a little bit imprecise, still is, and so is Gen AI, imprecise. But essentially, doing that pre-screening with these tools made things easier. So we went live with it like in summer of 2022. So it's been that long. But the need for Gen AI, at least for the type of work that I do, so I started my career in public sector in '96. Always been in public sector, health and human services for the most part, a little bit of financial sector, and now transportation. But in general, my focus has been customer service. So essentially, we have all these constituents, our citizens, our residents, they need something. And now you all are also my customers, right? You're getting your driver license or identity card as you're making your way to colleges. But you are different. You'd rather not, and this is me stereotyping, not true because you're actually making eye contact with me right now. You'd rather like looking at your phone, twiddling your thumb and getting what you need rather than actually have a conversation. You'd hesitate making a phone call, you'd hesitate meeting people, but you're very fine with talking to a screen, right? And that's just the cultural shift. There is a demand for providing more services remotely. There is a demand for providing more services now. I don't want to be in a queue, but I want it now. I don't want to do too much typing. I don't want to like fill out these forms, things that we were kind of okay with previously. You all have disrupted that expectation by, I just don't want to do it. I'd rather not do it. If it's too hard, I'm just going to go do something else, right? So that monopoly around where everybody needs a driver license, everybody needs an ID card is kind of even gone, because if it's too tough, you might even decide, I don't want to drive, right? So the idea is we are very focused on all generations of our customers. We have, and it has not only helped the new generation, Gen Z and so on, but what we are doing using these technologies is actually helping our senior population, our underprivileged population, and the population that's arriving from other countries with like language barriers and so on. There's many different examples where we use AI and then translating to Gen AI because that need existed. We use AI for, like I said, speech to text, text to speech translation for our calls. So we can analyze those calls and figure out the sentiment and do better job of training our agents. We have our chatbot on our website, which actually attempts to answer normal, regular questions, right, about how to do certain things. We actually have, for those of you who are looking for getting a driver's license, a knowledge test you have to pass. Everybody dreads those tests, and you have to go to DMV to do it. We actually allow for taking it from home via AI-based proctoring. Because the computer is watching you, it knows if your eyeball is moving elsewhere and you're looking somewhere, so it'll give you a risk score, and based on that, we figure out if you're cheating or not, right? So that's all AI. That's all already there. We also do back office processing, like we'll look at a lot of data, figure out if there is fraud in the system. Jyoti actually helped us do a pilot on disabled placard fraud to see if medical practitioners are committing fraud, if our disabled placard holders are committing fraud. So looking at vast amounts of data, figure out if there is fraud in the system. Those become a little bit boring topics for you, they're not as sexy. You're not generating an image out of nothing, right? But they are important things that real world needs, figuring out and reducing fraud and waste in the system. So we use machine learning and AI for all of these. But here's an interesting one. When you're interacting with the chatbot, you may ask something, it figures out what your intent of the ask is, we may have a predefined answer for it. And that's the answer that the chatbot spits out. Same is true with your the IVR systems. However, the ability to generate the next question based on what you're asking did not exist. And that's where generative AI has come in. Now you can synthesize the next series of questions to narrow down what the customer is really looking for. And we actually are doing pilots in that space already internally to our technicians, because what we have created is what we call as a policy guru. Essentially, a technician has a question, usually to their supervisors or people who know more. But now they can ask this policy guru to answer the question. It's our, let's call it a pilot before we go live with our customers, right? We can't go live with something that starts spitting out answers that are out of whack or weird or unfriendly. So we are testing that out with our technicians, both voice and web channels, and then figure out if it is truly asking the right questions after it has received the previous answer, and so on. So that's another use case of GenAI. We are actually asking GenAI to look at our source code, which is written in, those of you who may not be familiar, but essentially when you write a piece of code, Python for example, it compiles into assembler, and then it compiles into your the machine code that can be understood. So the DMV code actually runs on assembler, because some of these what we call as 3GLs or third generation and fourth generation tools didn't exist before. We are asking GenAI to read that code and tell us what it is about. That's because the people who wrote the code don't exist anymore, literally, unfortunately, because they wrote it 6 years ago. So those are some of the things that we are doing. We are also internally for our contact centers looking at all the memos that we have written to each other and figure out what is that right answer. And in many cases, some of the examples that are provided with, we want to summarize a whole lot of documentation, let's say a law or a policy from federal government, from state government, what is the crux of it? But we are always cautious. We know that generative AI has hallucinations, meaning you can feed good information, but you can also feed bad information, and then it decides which one is good or bad, or it can mishmash and make up stuff. Right? That's called hallucinations. We are very, very concerned about that particular aspect. So now, interesting part is, how do we take care of that? If machine learning or AI is telling you this is the answer, we are figuring out techniques to verify that answer before we present it to our employees, our customers, and so on. So I'm going to take a pause for a second, time check, and then any questions from the group before I keep going, or from the virtual group here. Okay, no questions.
Well, at DMV, can you give examples of some hallucinations that you've come across?
Yeah, I mean, the hallucination is something we're trying to avoid. Mm-hmm. So if you have come across this, we have tried to make sure that it never makes it out to the world. I would tell you a typical example, somewhat boring, is, let's say I release a piece of software 10 years ago, and it used to work in a certain way. Like the procedure, here's a 5-step process to provide a driver license to new customers, right, or young customers. And now we have a brand new piece of software, and here's a new process. Our entire content management has old things, old procedures, and new procedures. When you would ask GenAI a question, unless you tell it to always prioritize the latest, it would make a mishmash of the procedure that existed before and the procedure that exists now. So that's when you would see hallucinations in the mix. We have also seen, Jyoti and I were experimenting on the entire vehicle code. It's fun, it's a fun read, it's this thick binder. It's sitting on the website, you all can look at it. But we are just experimenting. When GenAI first was rolled out, we were like, okay, here's Google's, here's ChatGPT. There was also Amazon, I think, had just come out. And we were asking questions around the things that I hate, right? When I'm driving late at night, people have these blasting, like really bright lights that are coming from the other direction. Like, okay, well, what are the rules around those particular, lumens associated with those lights? Are there rules against like making it too bright, etc.? Obviously there's rules against high beam, but so we fed in the information to the LLM. And the LLM had already gone through all the information in the world, including the policy documents, right? The answer from Google, the answer from ChatGPT were completely different. One of them, I don't remember which one, was more specific and provided specificity, what the feds provide and what DMV has in California. The other one was too generic, in fact, almost inaccurate in terms of the type of laws that are against putting in too bright of lights. So those are some of the examples where you would see, just because it's the information, just like you do Google search, it'll give you good documents, it'll also give you crappy documents too. It's for you to choose. This is GenAI trying to figure out, okay, well, I have all this information, let me make an assessment, which ones are good, which ones are bad, and then based on that, it makes that assessment. It may not be accurate at all, but that assessment perhaps follows some rules. Maybe it follows chronology, maybe it follows number of hits that have been there on a particular, but that doesn't make it right? So, and there have been studies done on, I think it was a Microsoft bot that was released a few years ago when it was kind of trained and it started to answer question, everybody was excited, and then it went sideways because people started to feed in wrong information and it learned bad things, just like a child learning things from bad company. So essentially, for public use, it was a useless endeavor because now the information was no longer inaccurate, but also unacceptable. So there have been quite a bit of work done in the space. Now, outside the immediate things with GenAI that we're doing at DMV, we're also exploring other things like, there's obviously new models out there like Anthropic Claude model and ChatGPT's new version, and the meta version, etc. Now we are looking into things that we were doing previously ourselves, where we'll do computer vision work, meaning we'll train AI models or machine learning models into, okay, this is what a form looks like, this is what a driver license looks like, this is what a passport looks like, etc. Because when you're uploading documents for Real ID on DMV side, it's actually AI that's doing the analysis today. But we feed a lot of stuff in it for it to learn. The interesting thing about large language models, which have already fed in all these images and the documents and the data, is that they're kind of pre-trained. What's an acceptable passport, what's an acceptable document, etc. So now we are looking to see if we can replace these traditional AI things where we are feeding in all this data for it to train, right? Nothing comes cheap or easy. But AI can make us lazy. We don't need to necessarily train it, we need to validate it. There's always the unpredictability, can it still work tomorrow when it has more data coming in, right? Could be bad data as well. So as long as we have guardrails in place on what the result would be and it's still acceptable, we can move forward, replacing some of the older AI technology which will do computer vision, do pattern recognition, OCR and all those things, and replace that with GenAI. It does come with a cost though. We may or may not want to go that route because every single thing you do with GenAI is actually costlier than the previous version of AI, Um, Large language models, typically you cannot host on your systems. It's actually always owned by somebody bigger, better, like Microsoft and AWS, Amazon Web Services, and Google Cloud, and so on. There are smaller LLM, very precise models, like for medical work. Though some of you might be looking at medical fields, going into that. Synthesis is important. You have old data. Let's say you're looking at drug testing and you're looking at protein folding, right, based on certain algorithms. Now, AI can tell you from the previous results what you can expect as the new result and synthesize the new model for you, which you would have had to do previously. It can also look at, well, it could always do pattern recognition, right? Look at thousands of images and talk about whether a particular mole could actually be cancerous. I don't know, just by looking at visual inspection, right? Now you can actually synthesize some of the outcome of it. That, okay, based on these 5 things, and I'm going to ask 4 more questions, now I can tell you whether this could be cancerous or not. So there's quite a few things that are coming into each field, but synthesis is the keyword of the difference between where things were going before, where you would feed in the answer, it will do the matching, but now it's coming up with its own answers. So I don't know time check wise where we are, but I just wanted to kind of keep it more of like practical use of where things are, but happy to take any more questions.
Sure.
Yeah, what method you use to validate the output of Gen AI?
Yeah, so hey, good question. I can tell you what we are doing. It may or may not be the best move on our part. We are in this territory where we have familiar answers from what is the expected answer, right? And then, or even question, right? Because Gen AI can actually generate questions too. And what's our, let's call it a set expected happy path use cases, for lack of a better word. So what we are looking for is, let's go for what our typical customers' journeys are. If AI is still giving us expected answers, we are at a good place. So we actually, so that's kind of like, let's call it a somewhat manual, tad bit automated. You feed in information, does it match from our expected answers? That's great, right? Typical regression testing that you would do. One thing we are looking at is we want to pit different Gen AI, different large language models against each other, and then do a consensus between the models to see which one would be the best answer. And that becomes our, let's call it the right answer, for lack of a better word. Now, obviously, human in the loop will always be there to make sure things are not, customer feedback is always important. But the idea is to not trust a single large language model, but to be able to validate against another model, may not be as big, as expensive, but another model to see if that works. Also, if you look at a question, and if you look at an answer, you don't know anything about anything else in the world, a reasonability test whether the question and the answer somewhat match. Let's say I ask a question, what's my favorite color? Well, typical favorite, so what would actually, let me think of a better example there. Let's say, when do typical people lie? Let's say it's a behavioral studies, lie as in truth versus lie, but the context they got was lie as in lie down, right? And they were like, well, they typically lie at midnight, right? Because they're going to bed at midnight. So the word could have a different meaning in a different context. But the question and the answer for another LLM could actually reveal that, well, it's actually based on the context, it's actually looking for truth and lie versus lying down like, horizontally and going to bed. So those are some of the things you can do reasonability tests without even having context or the large language or the large knowledge base as well.
All right, any other questions? Any questions from the virtual participants? I know you all have challenges to hear us.
So your question is, what LLM is DMV using? Okay, so we're using many. So we are exploring a few. The one we went live with was Azure OpenAI. This was in 2022. It was the only one that we could actually procure. There's things around contractually. Because we actually were directly trying to work with OpenAI as well, that didn't work out. So we actually used Microsoft's OpenAI version. Since then, we have actually explored Google's Gemini. We have also explored in detail Anthropic's Claude as well. And in likelihood, we'll be using Anthropic Claude as well in the near future. Yes, so the question is, we are basically calling Microsoft's OpenAI as a service. The answer is yes, but we do have certain, like for example, if you look at, so we have LLMs, right, these models that fit. But then you have all these services available. For example, if you use DALL-E service for like synthesizing an image, right? Those are not models, they are obfuscation of the models that are using the models in the back. So Azure OpenAI is that. They come up with some bells and whistles though that we care about in terms of data privacy, protection. When somebody writes something that has personal information, do we make sure that it's redacted before it's sent to this large language model, etc.? Because that's something you should worry about as well. What you feed in all likelihood becomes an asset to those providers. It then becomes data for them. New York Times had an interesting study that while LLMs have scraped all the data in the world, now, obviously there's lawsuits there on how they're using the data, right? New York Times sued Microsoft, and they actually were successful, where New York Times content was used by the LLM to then synthesize the answers. So there was copyright infringement issues. But these services can provide, and it's important for state government, right? Our customer data, your data, is very precious to us. We want to make sure it is not misused, or it's not used at all outside the intent of where it is for. So we are very, very picky. We have the strictest privacy laws in the country, California does. And we adhere to those very, very well. ACLU is all on our case all the time in terms of making sure that we adhere to those as well. So, and that's why people who are undocumented in California are probably the safest in the nation in terms of being able to do the work, still have an identity, but not have their data gone to like feds for whatever misuse they would do. So the same is true with these services as well. We want to make sure data is obfuscated, it's redacted before it's sent to these models, so it doesn't leave. So these services provide that layer. Amazon has a guardrail system. Microsoft has a content filter system. The idea is that they would narrow down the information that's required to generate the answer. They'll also redact the information that they don't need to generate the answer. So those are the services that we use, not directly the LLM models that are out there, because it obviously could have some information leak otherwise. So hopefully that answers the question. Okay.
All right, any other questions? Okay, if no question, Ajay, thank you so much for the time. And thanks Rita, thank you so much for taking some time to come and talk to us. We truly appreciate it, and all the support that you provided for us is remarkable. Thank you. All right. I'm sorry, can you repeat your question? Sorry. Yes. Yes, I will pass on to Ajay. 1 second actually. Ajay, there's a question about miles. Ajay? Yes, so there's a question about DME website. Ask the miles chatbot.
Yeah, so what's the question? So the question is, if the chatbot is using AI, the answer is yes. It's, let's call it traditional AI, where we have fed it a bunch of what we call as utterances. It does language translation and detection, so figures out whether you're talking Spanish, and there's like 13 languages. And then it maps it to an intent, whether you're asking about where's my driver license, that means the intent is locate driver license, right? And then it'll have an answer for you, like resources, web links, application links, etc. On top of that, what we are doing is, and chatbot is something I've been working on for years, so I could geek out on that particular topic. So you have typical question and answer chatbots. You have service fulfillment chatbots, meaning not only they're answering questions, but now they're doing something for you. For example, if you're looking for your driver license status, like, okay, well, here, go to this website and get the answer. Instead of that, it'll say, okay, tell me more about yourself. Driver license number, maybe a couple other things so we can validate you're who you are. And then it'll actually make an API call to then get the answer for you and present it to you right there. So conversational interface to our applications. So we have added service fulfillment bots on top of the chatbots as well. But the AI model is pretty standard, utterance, intent, solutions combined together. Language translation is one more thing that's on top of it. And then speech to text and text to speech, where we have the exact same bot behaving a little bit different on our IVR systems, our voice systems. So it can serve people a little bit differently, but it follows exact same knowledge base. That's also using the same AI model. Does that answer your question? No problem.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. So, Bhaskar, can we continue or like?
Yeah, we can share the screen.
Okay.
Do we take like a 2-minute break? Do we take a short break? Or?
No, we can continue. We can continue. Are you sharing your screen?
No, you are.
In Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay, let me check. Yes, it's getting recorded.
Please share the screen.
Yes, I'm doing it right.
Okay.
All right, so can you all see my screen? Okay, all right, so let's continue actually. Let's say it again. I am in the presentation mode. Full screen view. I'm not sure how do I do that actually. 1 second. Bhaskar is coming actually.
What we did is
Okay, let's continue this one actually. And Bhaskar is going to try to get somebody to fix this issue. Let's move on. Okay. All right, so let's start. When I ask chatbot a question, it searches the web, doesn't get trained from the content Google. Yes, so keep all these questions. Definitely we can answer all these questions, not an issue. Let's just move on with the flow right now. Okay, so what's the learning objective for this one actually? I keep your phone on mute, please. I know it's not new to you, correct? You all heard about AI, machine learning, data science, everything, correct? I don't think this is something new for you, correct? What is missing? How do we connect all the dots, correct? Like there are so many things out there, correct? Number one. Number two, how does it work from an industry point of view? I think that's the key, correct? So it is not about going to ChatGPT and asking a question, or it's going to the Gemini and asking a question, getting a response, answering, solving problems. That definitely a good thing to start, but the real need right now, bringing into industry, because that is where the growth is, correct? And that is where people are trying to look for resources who can solve these problems, correct? So the focus is more towards understanding this, more towards an industry point of view, correct? So that is one thing that I wanted to make sure actually we communicate to you very effectively, you learn from that, okay? So one is, how does this works in industry and what it takes to solve these kind of industry problems. That's number one focus. Okay. And then the other aspect to this actually, so people they think about career transition, correct? I want to move out from what I'm doing into an AI space. Or I'm a student, I want to position myself to get into higher studies in this space, correct? So that's another area that we wanted to cover. So I don't know how many of you know, I also teach, I also work in industry. So I'm bringing both my experience in the industry as well as my experience in the teaching side too. So that would help you to understand, correct? So these are the main key objectives. One is understanding truly from an industry point of view, how does it work? Second, in case if you're in a transition process of transitioning yourself into in a career side or an education side, how do we choose what track to go? And what should I be studying for actually, whether it's going to be in a professional level education or an academic program. Let's say I want to do masters in data science. Is it worth it? Correct? So the XYZ university is offering artificial intelligence in the data science and machine learning master's program. Is it worth it? Correct? So all these questions are kind of unknown. We want to make sure actually we address those questions to get a clarity on in terms of how to do it. Correct? So those are the two things we wanted to achieve as an outcome of this program. And one second, Bhaskar is still doing. All right. So there are many things to learn, correct? Like it is not just one piece of information. So what you all know, like based on your experience, based on what I hear from when you talk to Ajay and all, yes, some of you already use ChatGPT, some of you already use some kind of an AI system which interacts with you. But beyond that, there are so many other things people need to understand. Like we talked about traditional machine learning. What does that mean? Is it worth it? Correct? Should I spend time on these things? Correct? As is something that going to add value to me, we need to understand that one. Traditional machine learning means people used to build machine learning models, correct? Classification model, regression model, clustering model, association model. Is this model something worth for me to learn? Correct? So that is one point you understand. And how does that differ from the generative AI? Like right now, everybody's talking about generative AI. What does it mean? And we talked about large language model. What about that actually? And we also discussed about uploading content, asking questions, correct? That's the RAG, retrieval augmented generation, correct? And then in this whole process, that's the data comes into picture. Data does not represent the same way that what we have learned so far, correct? We learned about Oracle, we learned about Microsoft SQL Server, we learned about DB2, etc. Is that matter at this point? When people talk about vector database, how does it differ from the traditional database system that what we are using, correct? So when it's in traditional database systems, we all IT professionals or in some form we learn about technology. In that space, we came across all this relational database management system. Is this something that's going to continue to be in the same role that what it has been playing right now? Is vector database is going to be something that's new to us? We can understand that one. And then there's the embedding. Okay, so how does the model understands all different type of data? Correct? If you look at Oracle as a database, if you look at Microsoft SQL as a database, correct? You could store text maximum. Okay, text-based means you can store employee information, customer information, so on. But these models are highly capable of working with any type of data. Data could be in the form of image, text, audio, video. How does that work, correct? And that is where embedding comes into picture, correct? How do you translate these data into more of a vector representation, and which is going to be stored in the vector form and then retrieve this one, correct? Whether it's image, text, audio, video, it doesn't matter. How do you store and process this one? And then next is responsibility. It is a practice. It is not really something that a tool that we wanted to go on to build. It is a practice how companies are trying to implement artificial intelligence, especially when it comes to generative AI. If something goes wrong, you ask a question, you get a response. Like Ramesh was asking about how do you verify the question is right or wrong, or the answer is right or wrong, or the context is right or wrong actually. So those are not something that the model doesn't know much about it. We need to build the practice. How do you build? That's where responsible AI comes into picture. Then observability and evaluation. What it means actually, when a model performs something, correct? How do you monitor that? And how do you evaluate this one? Okay, I'm asking you a question, you get a response back. How do you know the relevancy of the question and answer? Correct? This is the question, this is the context, this is the response. Is it accurate? Is it relevant? How do you monitor? Correct? So this is not a traditional way of monitoring an IT system. It's a different approach. Correct? So that is where observability and evaluation comes into picture. And of course, you all heard about the word data engineering. That is also plays a key role in this one. And of course, cloud computing, that also plays a key role in this one actually. So I was trying to cover from day one all this key concept. Okay, understanding about generative AI, understanding about the fundamentals about that traditional AI versus the machine learning, generative AI, and then a little bit about the prompt engineering, vector database, responsible AI. With that, to support that, there is some type of demos that we want to show them. Because otherwise it will become very dry, you wouldn't understand all these things, correct? Having a demo, understanding the concept, what sits in your mind, it helps you as well. So this is what we want to accomplish from day one. So day one is we want to focus more towards understanding about generative AI and large language model, and then the difference between the traditional machine learning model and large. Yes, any question?
It looks like the slides are not moving. We still see the objectives for some reason.
What can I do? Is there something I can
Anyone
fix?
has any experience?
So he's saying the slides are not moving.
Yeah, the slides are not moving. Yeah, right. Actually, yeah, I saw he was using application share, probably do the screen share because you are already doing presentation. Undo and then do the screen share, that might be possible.
Sometimes removing HTML table also.
Unshare and then choose the screen option.
Alright, sorry for all the technical difficulties and challenges. I know we are IT professionals, we understand technology, but still we have challenges like this. Right? It's an unfortunate situation. Okay, so while we are trying to figure this out, it is not about testing how much you know. I'm not intended that way, correct? There's a perception on people certain things, correct? So if I ask, is it working now? So if I ask you about data science, I know
Yeah, I
there will
can,
be,
yeah. Sorry.
that's fine. I know there will be 100 different responses, correct? When you say 100 different responses, some people may say it's data analysis. Some people may say it's a large amount of data. Some people say data warehouse. Some people say business intelligence, correct? So these are the different answers we get, correct? So based on your experience, like I said, it's not a right or wrong answer. It is not about like testing you how much you know, how much you don't know. It is more for making it more interactive. So trying to find how much you understand about data science, correct? All these questions, answers, I'm sure you read many times, you heard many times, correct? So from your point of view, based on what you know, correct? It's not a right or wrong. Can anyone tell how do you define data science? I currently teach at Harvard. I'm also interact with them. I ask the same question to the student too, correct? So how do you define data science? Just one or two lines. You see where we stand, correct? You see, even though we know, but we don't have a structured, systematical, methodical way to express what we know, correct? It's all bits and pieces here and there, correct? So we all know the answer, but we don't have a way to put things in context and represent this one, correct? So that's exactly the state where we are in AI too, correct? We heard about all these keywords, we heard about all the things what people talk about, correct? But how do we put this in context? How do we put this in a way that people can understand, correct? So by definition, when people say data science, it is very, very simple. It's just a one-line answer. Apply science on data. When we say science, such as the statistical modeling, decision tree, random forest, logistic regression, neural net, etc. These scientific technique you apply on data, and that is why it's called data science. It is a modern thought for traditional data analysis, traditional data warehouse, traditional reporting that what we have done, correct? So in a simplified way, if we have to explain anybody what is data science, apply science on data, that's all this is, correct? It's a very simple thing. Like I said, you all know the answers, but only thing, You don't know how to put things in context. How do you present in a more structured way? All right. So I hope these issues are resolved. Let's move on. So this is okay. Can you all is my screen moving now? Okay, good. Can anyone confirm on the Zoom participants?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, all right. So okay, that's fine. Let's move on. So this is for our day one actually. So we want to understand about Gen AI and traditional AI, how it's different, prompt engineering, vector database, responsible AI, all these things. And the tomorrow, the next day, so there are other concepts that we needed for this one. Like I said, this is more towards industry. It is not about just understanding the basic concepts. From an industry point of view, what is involved, correct? So if you are dealing with different type of data, audio, image, video, text, how does it going to work? That's why the multi-model RG comes into picture. In order to make this an application, there are certain framework people follow. LangChain is one of the framework that people use. I'm not saying that's the only thing. It is very commonly widely used as a framework. And then, in order to build an application, what is involved? That's also another thing we are going to do. And then the hands-on lab that we are going to do. There are some demos I'm going to do. So with that said, I do want to bring this up right now so that you can understand. So one other thing that what we did actually, we created a lab for you. So this entire thing is built on a lab, okay? It is up to you how serious you are and how much you want to take yourself, correct? If you are serious, I am serious. If you are not, nobody is serious, correct? So we put a lot of effort to build labs. There are 6 different labs involved in this one. So for example, this is a very step-by-step instruction. It walks you through how to build everything. And we also provide a source code, correct? So this, I believe, already sent it to you. Okay, you should have this one, and this also includes something around how do you install and configure the infrastructure. Okay, so everything is you should have actually, and on top of it, what we are providing an open AI key, which is basically our paid subscription for you to learn and practice. Okay, so if you do this 6 lab, I'm absolutely confident you are highly capable of building applications, okay? Highly capable of building applications. So like I said, there are so many resources out there are so many material out there, you could go on Google and learn and everything. But the ultimate goal is, like I said, correct? You know everything, but only what you don't know, how to put things in context. So these labs will help you to be an expert in Gen AI, especially building applications. So these are all built towards creating applications. So make sure you have all the labs, make sure you understand what the labs are. It is very self-explanatory. And I will try to walk you through one of the labs so that you can understand. In case if you got into issues, anything, I have my team on the call, they can help you, they will support you as well. Okay, all right, let's move on. So I'm just going to skip some of the slides. Okay. Because we already gone through this, the time is running out. Okay, let's understand about when people talk about traditional AI, what is involved. Okay, so this is there is more content to this, but I just want to start from here. So before generative AI, what we did actually, we built machine learning models. Yes, screens are moving.
Sorry, when you unmuted and shared, something has changed.
Yeah, in that.
Okay. All right. So the good starting point actually, before we go into Gen AI, understand about traditional machine learning models, traditional automation standards. Correct. So that would help us to get the ground reality better, and then we can move on to generative AI. So traditional machine learning models, what we have seen so far, people build machine learning models to solve problems like classification. When I say classification, is the customer going to churn yes or no? Correct? Let's say I'm a Costco employee, I work for Costco, and Costco asked me to build a machine learning model which identifies the customer potentially who is going to churn out. Correct? Costco has 8 million subscribers. Out of 8 billion population, how many people are going to churn out, correct? So how do we build a machine learning model, which is basically a classification model? It's trying to classify, set up data into SR no, do or die, pass or fail, etc. So that is why it's called classification model. That is one type of machine learning model, what we have seen people building the traditional way. Okay, so implementing something like a decision tree, random forest, correct? Logistic regression. So these are the models that falls under the traditional machine learning model of classification. I'm not doing classification, I'm doing other model, regression model. How much it costs of this house, or how much salary we could pay for this person, and what is the earning potential, what is the spending power. So these are not classification, these are all something that a continuous value, it is the regression model. So that is also another type of model we implemented in the traditional AI. Okay, I'm not trying to classify, I'm not trying to predict a continuous value. When I say continuous value, which is a regression model, which tells you what is the cost of this car, what is the cost of this house. You cannot say a value, you give a range. It could be 100 to 200,000. It could be 300,000 to 400,000, right? So that's a range, that's why it's called regression. Alright, the other one people build in the traditional machine learning model, it's called clustering. Okay, what is clustering is basically, it groups the set of data that has a similar interest, correct? I'm trying to find out people who are interested in certain languages, people who speak Telugu, people who speak Tamil, people who X, Y, Z, I want to group them. How do we group them? That is clustering, okay? Finding similarities, finding interest, and group the people, group the data sets, that's a clustering, so and so. Again, I have more to cover, I will go. So these kind of problems that what we have been solving, it just basically falls under traditional machine learning model. Here, what is the problem? It is very narrow focused. That means it knows only what it is, correct? If it is a classification, it knows only classification. If it's a regression, it knows only regression. If it's clustering, it knows only clustering. So it is kind of a narrow focused model. It doesn't know a generalized way of solving problem. Like the example, if you go to GPT, you can ask any question. Your question could be more towards cooking. Your question could be more towards health. Your question could be more towards policy. Your question could be more towards politics, correct? You can ask any question, it will answer the question. So what it means actually, it is not a narrow focus. Here the models are very narrow focused, correct? The traditional AI models are very narrow focused. Okay, that means it knows only one problem to be solved. It is not generalized to solve many problems, correct? It is not generalized to solve many problems. So now what industry is trying to do? Industry is trying to move away from this one. Why? Why does industry want to move away from this one? That's because the time, money, energy, resource takes to build a model that I'm just using for one purpose is meaningless, correct? It's not worth it, okay? I don't want to spend time, money, energy on build a model. It just solves only one problem, correct? And it doesn't make any sense. How could you build a model which is going to be generalized? When I say generalized, it solves many problems, correct? So when I say cost to customer is going to churn yes or no, correct? All it says yes or no, that's it. It doesn't say anything beyond, correct? But I don't want to just build a model only to do that kind of problem. I want to build a model which is generalized, solves many different problems. And that is when industry started focusing on building a generalized model, and that is why generative AI came into picture. Okay? Generative AI came into picture. How does generative AI works? And this is based on large language model. When you say large language model, I hope you all understand language model means. So language model is basically like the best way to understand. On your cell phone, if you type a text, correct? So what happens at the bottom, it brings the next predicted word, correct? So where are you going, correct? So whatever you type, at the bottom you notice actually, it brings the next word what it predicts, and then in order for you to choose the word so that you could conversation or typing, whatever it is, it could be much faster and quicker, correct? So it generates the content. So in order to achieve this, correct, we need a language model. And what kind of language model? A language model which understands massive amount of data. When I say massive amount of data, let's say I'm using Wikipedia as a source and ask a question, correct? So reading Wikipedia, answering question, it is not an easy task. It is not a traditional machine learning model, correct? It is not a natural language processing. It needs more power. It needs more compute resource. It needs more reasoning and problem solving skills, correct? So that is where large language model comes in the picture. So the point I'm trying to make you understand where industry was building a narrow focused traditional machine learning model such as classification model, regression model, clustering model, so on. So That is quite expensive and it is time resource intensive. We don't want to do this one just to solve a problem. We want to build a model which is generalized, which could solve many problems, and that is when the innovation of generative AI came into picture. To implement generative AI, we need a large language model. Large language model, a model understands massive amount of text, both written, spoken, in all form, correct? That is the context, correct? All right, let's move on. Now, what we understood, let's summarize. We understood about generative AI. Generative AI is nothing but a foundation model. And if you use tools like Amazon Bedrock, if you use tools like now OpenAI, the Playground, you notice on the left-hand side, model to choose, or somewhere you see the option to model to choose. So those models are foundation models. What it means, it knows what it has been trained. It may not know anything about your specifics. Okay, when I say your specifics, like for example, a DMP, right? There are internal content which is very specific to DMP. The GPT model doesn't know. Okay, what it knows the foundation. What is the foundation? It can read a text, it can understand the text, it can answer a question, it provides reasoning, it provides explanation, etc. That's a foundational skills, correct? That is a foundational skills. We are a foundational software engineer. We may not know specifics about certain programming languages, correct? I'm a software engineer, I understand software engineering, so that's my foundation. On top of it, I want to learn other skills such as a Python skill, SQL skill, this skill, that skill, etc. So the foundation model knows based on what data has been trained. It doesn't know anything specifics on the context on which you are going to work with the model. And that is why it's called foundation model. It's good to know when people say foundation model, a large language model which has been trained on publicly available data, which doesn't know anything on the context on which the question is being asked. Context is the most critical point to understand. Correct? So that is what the foundation models are providing to you. Okay? So foundation models are providing to you means it knows, like the best way to understand. I'm a cook, I know how to cook. But I may know the specific of some individual, correct? What is somebody's liking? Somebody doesn't like that, I don't know. But I'm a cook, I know how to cook, correct? If I want to cook for somebody, I need to know the specifics. And that specific was this foundation models are missing. The foundation model knows how to cook, but it doesn't know how to cook for John, Mike, Lisa, because John, Mike, Lisa have specification. They say, I don't like cheese, I don't like oil, I don't like this, I don't like that. That's individual specific, correct? That's a contextual driven. The foundation model doesn't know that one. Okay, so the point to understand, the generative artificial intelligence, it's a foundation model that this industry is currently providing. And these models are capable of solving many problems. Alright? And why does the word generative came into picture? Okay, so Ajay did talk about it. It, technically speaking, generates content. Okay, content in the form of a text, audio, image, video. Do not think, it just only generates the content. Generating content means solves problem, correct? I'm trying to solve a mathematical equation that solves and gives you back in the form of a text, correct? I'm asking the model to create a compose of music, correct? It solves the problem and generate the music, it comes in the form of a audio. I'm asking the model to create a video and give it to me, it creates a video. So don't think when you say generates content, it doesn't mean that it's only always text based. It could be any form. It could be audio based, it could be video based, it could be image based too. Okay? At the same token, do not think it just only generates the content. It solves problems. Okay? Solves problem. Example, what we do in a traditional data warehouse. We collect data, load data, and extract insights. What is the insights that we are asking? What is the sales trend for the last year? Okay? I want to see my sales trend last year, second quarter, third quarter, etc. So you get an answer. That answer is nothing but a generation. Okay, that answer is nothing but a generation. So a lot of people think generative AI means it summarizes the content, generates the response, etc. Not at all. It's highly capable of solving any problem that you could think of. Okay, it may not do any physical activity, surgical procedures. Correct? I'm a surgeon. I want to do a surgery. Okay, it could be later. Correct? But anything that you need to perform a surgical procedure, it could provide. Correct? Any instruction, any documentation, etc. It could provide. Correct? So it is a perception people think generative AI means it generates text. It generates content, summarizes the answers and etc. It's beyond that. Okay? It's highly capable of solving any problem that you could think of. Correct? So That is what it is. Except the physical object. Let's say I want to make a sandwich. Okay. I can ask, can you make a sandwich? Okay. Turgos, number 9, pastrami. It can give you the recipe, but it may not make the actual sandwich. It can create a recipe for you. It tells you how to make the sandwich step-by-step instruction. If we ask to create a video, it will create a video for you. If we ask you to create an image, it will create an image for you. Correct? Like, let's say the model responds back to you, tell, hey, I need an instruction to be followed with a screenshot. It will create for you. Okay? The instruction to be followed by a screenshot, it will create for you. So the point is, it is capable of solving problems. The reason that why it came the generative AI, the word generating, it generates content. Those content could be used in solving problems. Problem could be any form of nature. It could be health, it could be medical, it could be oil and gas, it could be energy, it could be consumer. No matter what industry it is, it can solve. Okay, so the word generating came into picture. It generates the content. Content in the form of text, audio, image, video. Alright, I'm going to skip this. Alright. Let's do a small demo so that you can understand how this works. Okay? So before I go to the demo, I wanted to cover one point, the large language model and the traditional natural language processing. If you already worked in artificial intelligence, data science, machine learning, I'm sure you heard the word NLP, natural language processing. So what I'm trying to highlight, the difference between traditional natural language processing and large language model. Okay? So the traditional natural language processing, it basically let you analyze simple, low amount of data. Okay? So let's say I want to find out customer sentiments. Okay? When customer writes a feedback, I want to read and understand and say there's a positive, negative neutral. That is a simple thing. It's not a big deal. Okay? You can use the traditional natural language processing. Let's say I want to predict the next word. Right? I'm typing something, I want to predict the next word. In that case, I can use natural language processing. But the natural language processing that what we have trained, okay, does that model capable of reading something like policies, correct? So DME has a policy which is like 10 terabytes of data. Can it read that much amount of data and answer a question? That is, can be, but it is not an easy task. It's going to take enormous time, money, and effort and resources, correct? So that is where this thing become now mainstream, correct? Generative AI become extremely mainstream, right? Reading that kind of, like Ajay was talking about, I'm involved in that project, right? Reading like 3 million lines of COBOL code and extracting insights. What is the actual rule? That is not something we can do using traditional natural language processing, right? The application that we talked about for the DMB, the specialized license plate, the first model we implemented natural language processing is a bird model. I will go talk about it, right? But those are all extremely time consuming, resource intensive. It is just meaningless for us to spend that much time. Right? Since this model is not highly capable, there's no point in spending time on these things. So the natural language processing, it is a best model to do simple tasks and very small amount of data. If you are dealing with something that has a massive amount of data, obviously natural language processing is not going to work. Okay? So one of the examples that I can give you, I worked on a project for medical transcription. What it means, when you go to doctor's office, you are talking to the doctor. From that point, all the way to creating a recommendation for you, it's all fully done, voice to text translation. It's a fully a large language model solution. So what we do, we record the audio, we process in parallel all the audio conversation. And based on the audio conversation, we extract insights. What has been spoken, what's the symptoms, what's the warnings, etc. And then we create a medical transcript. Because as a HIPAA compliant, you have to, as a doctor has to certify this one, correct? Even though it's machine generated, we do this one. So building something at that scale, we can't achieve this using a traditional natural language processing. We need a different capacity. And that is where natural language processing, the large language model comes into picture. So a conversation that takes place between a medical doctor and a patient, that entire conversation is recorded. From the conversation, we can be able to create medical transcript. We can also be able to create medical prescription. And that is the level of automation industry is exploring at this point, correct? And that is basically something that we could achieve using the large language model. There are more examples I want you to understand. So make sure you have a clear view on the traditional natural language processing, how it is different from large language model. Okay, that's one point. And some of the examples, when people say natural language processing, okay, if you look at this one actually, on the top you said traditional machine learning model, the natural language model actually. So there's a BERT model which is very commonly used, LSTM-RNN, like a long short-term memory, like a recurrent neural network. So these are the models that people commonly use. If you look at the bottom, these are the models that I'm sure you all are familiar with this. The GPT model, by the way, JAX-GPT is not a model, correct? JAX-GPT is an application, correct? The underlying architecture on which these models are built, okay, it's a transformer architecture. The actual model is a GPT model, correct? You can see GPT-4, GPT 3.5, GPT mini, this and that. Those are the actual models. JAX-GPT, it's an application, will let you interact with the system. It's like a playground you can do. So this is to make you understand when people say traditional natural language processing, what kind of model we are talking about. So these are the models that are commonly used. I'm not saying this is the only list. It is for you to make you understand. So the traditional natural language processing people use BERT models, okay? And that is one of the things that we implemented for DMV very fast. And then now we are exploring other models too. So this is just to give you an idea. There are models available in the traditional natural language processing, which that's very similar to what the ChatGPT does in a lower capacity. Okay, when it's a lower capacity, the amount of data it processes, the amount of data it understands, it's going to be something that's like very minimal. Okay. All right. So I hope I kind of covered you to get the ground set. Okay. So when I say get the ground set, make sure you understand the traditional artificial intelligence what we have been building, or traditional machine learning model what we have been building. That is one point. And why we want to move away from this one. Another point. When people say generative AI, what it means. Why the word generative AI came into picture. Okay? And then large language model. These are the core concepts I want you to understand. Okay? Now let's look at something practical. Okay? So how does it work in a real world? I just want to give you a small demo so that you could understand. You can put all the things in context, you'll understand. Let's do the demo and then we'll take a small break. All right. So it is an application we built. The lab that I was talking will let you build similar applications. Okay. The best way to learn, watching YouTube video, great, no question. Listening from someone like me or somebody else, it's great. The only way you learn, you gain confidence, you make a difference doing by yourself. There is no substitute for this. Correct? It is up to you what role you want to play. Correct? If you want to play a role at a high level, this doesn't need. Okay? If you want to be a hands-on person where you have a confidence, right? I have a confidence on my subject, okay? Nobody can fool me around, right? So I can get to the bottom of the issue, I will deal with that, right? So if you want to be a hands-on person, it really matters. It is a question of how much time, energy, interest you have to do this hands-on. Otherwise, it will become an abstract. You have less confidence, you wouldn't be able to perform the level that companies are expecting and the market is demanding you. Okay? All right. So the lab is very similar to what you're looking at right now. It is going to be one of the things that you'll be doing. Right? There are 6 different labs, and all the labs we have given source code. We have given everything that what you need in order to perform this one. Okay. So here I have different type of thing. So what this does, since a lot of you talked about generates the content, generate the question, generate answers, this and that. So we want to touch the same thing. So this is a model that we built for one of the universities in Singapore. Okay? So this was built very long time back. Like it was built almost like 2023 time frame actually. So what it does actually, it is used for faculties. Okay, so 2 things. One is, okay, it allows you to generate a question, and also in terms of content you can create, and then you can also do evaluation. That means if a student gives an answer to you, and how do you use this large language model to read and understand what answer is written, and then also grade the student and also give an explanation, correct? The answer is not a black and white answer, you have to explain to you, correct? The student has to need to know what mistakes they made, so you need to explain to them actually. It does not, of course. So that's the type of demo this one actually. So here I'm going to select the first one as diagram. So so when I'm selecting it, so at the top you see question generation. So I'm a teacher, I want to conduct some assessment to the student. I don't have time to create questions, correct? To create a question is not just what you know, it could be based on many factors, correct? So like I said, I want to point to, it's a social science. I want to point to people to read and understand about certain aspects to Wikipedia or some website, something, policies, correct? So for these, I don't have time to read through and take a question. I can use the system to generate a question, correct? So I will go ahead and do this one actually. So here I can give an input to the model. In the input could be in any form. It could be a text file, PDF, image, audio, video. So for demo purpose, I'm just going to select this one. Now it is asking me, give me where the file is located, correct? So I'm just going to go ahead and select the file. Alright, so this is a file I'm taking and telling the model, use this file as a content, generate question. Okay, now if you want to preview what the content is, you can do. Okay, so this is exactly one of the labs that you are going to build. Okay, if you follow the labs, if you are able to do this one, I'm absolutely confident you will have a clear understanding and also how this works in practical real worlds. Okay, so I'm looking at the content, I'm fine with that actually. So now the next question is, what kind of question you want? The question could be fill in the blanks, true or false, match the following, so and so, or it could be descriptive. It's up to you what you want actually, correct? You can pick and choose what kind of question you want to ask actually. So I'm asking the model, do a fill in the blanks. Okay, so now I'm ready to, at this point, I'm just interacting with you to collect the information, correct? So I'm asking you, give me the content to generate a question. In case if we have guidelines, correct, the question shouldn't be starting with what. The question should start with how. The question shouldn't have this, that, correct? You can give all the taxonomy. You can give guidelines, everything you can give, correct? So once you give this one, now I'm ready to generate a question. I'm going to click submit. So now on the top you see the model is interacting with me. It generates the questions. Okay, it generates the question to me. So here the point I'm trying to make you understand, it generates the question. The question is in this case in the form of text. Okay, in the form of text. So here it could be, okay, question generated by LLM. Okay, so these questions that what you are looking at right now, it is generated based on the content what I provided. So here you can see it created a question based on the content I provided. The key point to understand, internally the model, it's a live system. When I say live system means, when the student interact, it creates a question. For a demo purpose, I'm doing this one. It's actually, when you log into the system, based on your progress, it creates a question. What it does, it understands the student's level of learning potential. Based on that, it determines whether the question is going to be like low, medium, high, or foundation level, or intermediate level, or advanced level. It understands each student. Each student will have a different question. Correct? Imagine if a teacher has to do this kind of job. Correct? If a class of 100 students, understanding each student, generating a question based on the learning potential, based on the learning interest, it's practically impossible. All the teacher will quit. Correct? There's no way the teacher can do it. So this understands the student's learning potential and the speed in which I'm learning, and then the ability to solve problems and things like that. It creates a question. So this has a built-in function, which is something that I cannot demo this one because it's part of the product that we offer. So it understands the student's learning potential based on what the taxonomy guideline is given. It generates the question actually. So here the point is generates the question. Okay, generates the question, and that is where generative AI comes into picture. Okay, so I asked for fill in the blanks. Now I will go back. I will say I don't want fill in the blanks. I want match the following. Or I want multiple choice. Okay, so I will go ahead and select multiple choice.
Maybe you're not sharing the screen.
I think he might have disconnected the Zoom.
No, I'm sharing the screen because it's not a PowerPoint presentation. It's an application.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so there may be something we need to do, which I'm not sure what it is. The screen is on share board. Okay, but I moved out from the PowerPoint presentation. I'm in the actual application. Yes.
So you need to share the screen rather than the PowerPoint.
No, but I need to share both actually.
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Whatever you.
Okay, so we are trying to fix this issue. 1 second.
Just while they're fixing, the text file that you provided has the source data.
Yes, that's the source data.
Let us say I want to prepare a 6th grade 5th chapter linear
Anything is
equation- linear equation. So in the text file, do I need to bring all the linear equations, the topics into that one?
No, you don't need to bring anything. We just have to provide the instruction. Taxonomy, the guideline what we wanted.
Okay.
In terms of data, pre-processing, data preparation, nothing. So you can pass anything. So the guideline is what I say taxonomy, I want these instructions to be followed, correct? Like I said, the question should not start with what, the question should start with how. And the question should also understand, like, the student's learning potential, correct? That means the student is bright, question should be tough. The student's okay, the question should be okay. The student's below average, question should be below average, like this. You provide guidelines, it understands and creates a question.
In the guidelines, we can also specify about the level of answer explanation.
Yes, we can give everything. I'm going to cover that too. Okay, I'm going to cover that.
Are you able to show the text file? Or does it come?
Yeah, it's a very basic text file actually. So I think I did release that one too. So it is simple, example of the machine learning model. So it is very basic one, correct? So you can like at DMV, like I said, we have a policy which is like more than 30 gigabytes of data. We use that much. So it is not just only a text file, it could be anything. You can even pass on a YouTube video, correct? And then use that video as a source to generate a question. Or you can point to a website, you can use that too, correct? So just for a demo purpose, this is actually a product, correct? So I'm not able to go to the product and show you. So what this product does, it's a personalized learning experience. Okay, all right, so let's move on to the next one. So let's say for the same content, I want to create a multiple choice question. In that case, I will go ahead, sorry, let me refresh and then start more, because some of you are not able to see this one actually. So here I'm trying to generate, so I'm going to go to the question generation. So that's what I wanted the model to do. So what the model I'm expecting to do, I'm asking the model, hey, I don't have time, generate a question based on the taxonomy document that I provide, right? That's all. So the model internally figures out based on the instruction what I provided, the knowledge base, the data source what I provided, as well as the student's learning potential. It takes all of those things and creates the question based on what I asked the model to do. So model type, I'm going to select a file, and then I'm going to upload the file. So this is the file I wanted to use, all right? So now let's go ahead and select preview. So I'm going to look at the file to be previewed. And then I'm going to go and select what kind of question I want to create, multiple choice question. Any question is fine. Now I'll go ahead and run the model. So when I run the model, on the top you see it's running. Now it interacts with and generates the question. Okay? It interacts with you and generates the question actually. And these questions right now, I told you, it is in a, if a class of 100 students, each student will have a different set of question. It is not the same question for all 100 students, right? Every student will have a different question. So when I download this one, it creates the PDF documents, correct? So if you go to ChatGPT, it doesn't create a document like this. It will just interact with you to answer the question. As I said, it's a product. The product has all these functions, it creates for you. So here, I ask for multiple choice question, it generates a multiple choice question. So you can see it's a question of multiple choice, correct? So it's all doable. It is based on how we want to build the applications. So now let's say I'm not interested in the question, I want to do evaluation. How well the students are answering. Okay, so I'm going to ask the model to do certain answering for me, correct? So there are students' answers. I want the model to look at the answers and grade them. And here also same thing. You can provide any guidelines. Like you said, the answer shouldn't exceed more than 1 page. Okay, the answer should be written at a very summarized level. My question is 10 question. 10 question, 1 page, everything should be summarized level. I don't want any details, correct? So, etc. Like this, you can give any guideline, the model can understand, will answer the questions. Okay? Alright, so now I will go ahead. What do you want to assess? Anything is fine. For a demo purpose, I put 2 things. One is either a program or a descriptive answer. Like I said, no limit. Do not think that this is limited to only these 2. Sky's elements. You can do anything. You can do anything, right? So for a demo purpose, I'm using these 2. I'm saying that, okay, programming. Okay, so that means what I'm asking the model actually, I'm going to give you set of program written by students, evaluate and give me grades for the students with explanation. And this is where the explainable AI comes into picture, correct? The explainable way is model should be able to give reasoning why a decision was made. If it gives us 0 points, correct? What is the reason behind why the 0 points were given? Okay, it is again based on if you are in an academic program, you understand, correct? So what the academic program will do, they will ask you to write a program. No matter how you write, the expected answer is this. If this answer doesn't meet, your point is 0, correct? It doesn't matter how many lines of code you wrote or what you written, nobody cares. This is what I expect. If I expect this, if it is there, yes, you get points. If it is not there, nobody care about it, you will get 0 points. Like this, you can provide all the guidelines. Okay, you can provide all the guidelines. So it's asking me, give me the input file. So I will go ahead and give an input file actually. So this is 1 second. Alright, so I have multiple different answers. I'm going to select this one actually. So here I have an answer with an error. Let me select this one. So this is a program written by a student. And this is basically the content of the program. It's a simple example. And it's a Python program trying to find out whether the given number is an odd number or even. So if you see here, there is a syntax error in this one. In the for loop, you see there is a colon is missing, right? It is a very basic, simple thing actually. So it could have been captured actually. So in this case, there is no way the program can run. It will give a syntax error and see how the model is performing. So I'm going to submit this one. Now the model look at the answers and then comes back with an explanation and a grade. Okay, with an explanation and grade. So it gave 0 points. Okay, and then it gives the reasoning. So this reasoning is basically what I'm saying is how the model learns about it. Correct? So this is the beauty of large language model. The large language model understands like a human. Whatever instruction you give, it understands, then start implementing those instructions. Right? So here I told you, if the program has any syntax error, if I'm unable to run the program, give 0 points. Okay? Give 0 points. That's instruction. You could give any instruction. I can ask, should be written a function. Variables should be declared and initialized. At the end, variables should be deleted. Right? Things you can give any instruction you want. Right? There's no limit. Right? There's no limit. It's all possible. Okay? It is all possible. So now let's say I have another program which is basically written well. So I'm going to ask the model to look at it actually. So here you could see the program is written well. Okay? So the model has a colon in this one. So when I do this one, now the model understands and I do an evaluation. Okay, and the point is 2 things. One is reasoning, correct? Why the decision was made. Why did I give 0 points? That's the reasoning, correct? That is the explanation that model gives. So that is the concept called explainable AI. It explains to you so that you could understand. So this explanation, it would be difficult to implement something in the traditional machine learning model, or traditional natural language processing. And this is where large language model become very extremely powerful, very extremely powerful. So here it gives so many points, and then it gives the reason why it is done. Okay, it explains to you. Like I said, whatever level you want to go, you can. Whatever level you want to provide, these are the things I look for. Looking for variables, looking for indentation, looking for documentation, looking for X, Y, Z. All can be given as an instruction for the model to understand and grade you. Okay, so this is one way to look at it. Is this model only capable of doing programming? Can it do a descriptive answers? Answer is yes. Okay. So I'm asking the model to evaluate. This is my actual answer. 1 second. So I'm going to select the evaluation. So here I'm going to basically select the descriptive answer. So here it is asking me. What it is asking me, if for the given question, if there's any actual answer, give it to me. If you do not know, you can ask the model to generate its own answer too. Okay? The very first option you see, actual answer, which is basically, I'm giving the model, use this answer as a guideline, follow this one. If you don't have an answer, you can also ask the model to create your own answer. In either case is fine. Okay? In either case is fine. So I'm telling this is the actual answer. I'm telling this is the actual answer. So take this answer, and then this is basically trying to explain normalization in machine learning. Normalization also happens in the database management system. Right? In the database management system, if we have multiple tables, multiple columns, how do you optimize this one? That's a concept people implement in normalization. So the question is explain normalization. It doesn't give more context. Okay, so the student, either based on what was taught in the class, the student should know normalization in machine learning. So they should be writing anything about normalization about database management system, correct? So now I'm going to ask the model to look at answers, correct? So this is student one answer, and then it gives this answer was given by the student. You can see data organized, database, etc. So this is model now looking at the answer and try to come back and tell why the model is given this much answer. It gives like 1 point. Why it is given? Because the question is machine learning normalization, not database management normalization. And the other answer that was given here is, I'll go ahead and upload this one. So this is for the student 2. It is written more towards the machine learning, correct? So this is normalization machine learning, which is student's answer, and it is going to go ahead and do this one. So the concept here, 2 key things we are trying to understand. One is, when we say generative artificial intelligence, how does practically it works in real world? You could take this more of an education. In education, all the teachers are currently asked to conduct assessments. To conduct assessment, they have to take questions. Once the assessment is done, they have to grade the students. You see the entire process is simplified, correct? As I told you, if you are creating a question at a personalized level, for a class of 100 students, if I have to create a 100 student separate question, and also understand students' learning potential and customize the question to the level of complexity based on the learning potential, it is practically impossible. There's no way a teacher can do. Now this can do for things like that, correct? So the point is, using generative AI, we can solve many industrial problems. This is one of the problems that we are talking, how this applied in education, okay? So one last point here, that we will take a break, okay? Is this only for creating questions, grading students? No. You can also create study material, okay? So when I say study material, I'm trying to teach a subject or a topic. So now the model, I don't have a content, okay? I'm asking the model to create content. So what happens when you go and search in Google, you get a lot of links, correct? We don't know whether those links has any value for you, or is it something that I can take it and go and study? Nobody knows about it. How do you use generative AI? Create the actual study material, okay? So when I say study material, it has to look at many aspects, like the learner's potential, how well this learner can learn these things. And second, the level of detail that is needed actually. And third, type of content what I wanted actually. Like I said, I could use images and then give an explanation, or I can just simply write everything. There are many different ways to build content. All can be done. Okay? So for the demo purpose, I'm just using a text-based. So if we need like in a visual form of building content, when I say visual form of building content, just take a screenshot and explain from there. Correct? Like I said, the step-by-step guide was a screenshot. Those screenshots are basically gives enough instruction for the learner to follow and understand in a visual representation. Otherwise, if it's a purely text, you have to read and understand, right? So, like that, there are many different ways you can build content. So here's one of the things that I'm saying. I'm asking the model, what I'm asking, I want to teach a class, and which is basically like, I don't have study material, I don't have a handout for a student to give. I want a content to be built. I'm telling the model, create the content, data science. All right. So now this is going to take some time. It's actually going to create like a structured formalized document. So it's going to take some time, and we can take a break. We'll come back and look at it. So it's ready now. All right. So any questions so far? Do you all follow and understand? Any questions? Is this clear to you? Yes.
So can we ask any questions?
Answer is yes.
Like, can I ask, design a generation 5 plane, 6 generation plane?
Yes.
Yes.
If it knows, it will create. If it doesn't know, and this is where I'm saying, I'm a cook, I know how to cook anything, everything. But I do not know what you want me to cook. Right? You understand the difference? Just because I'm a cook doesn't mean I can cook anything that you like. How do I know what you like? You have to give me instruction.
Okay, if I provide a few, maybe a set of requirements, like I am maybe somebody in Iran, or some other country,
Sure.
maybe not North Korea.
Answer is, the simple answer is yes. As long as if I have a source document, a reference and build, absolutely 200% confident we can build anything, anything. That is where industry is leading right now. It is very scary. Okay, and these are all needs a deep skill, not just reading from on a paper, or just watching about Gen AI, reading about like here and there. You truly understand how the model is working. If you understand, you can make it happen. Yes.
Can I also like generate images as well?
Answer is yes. You can generate images. I have one demo. I'll show you. It was done for a company called Vortis. It's a manufacturing company. They asked us to build a product search and product recommendation across the world. Across the world. Let's say if something broke in an elevator, they can take a picture and send the picture, and we build from there. Or they can record an audio, send it to us, we build from there. Or record a video, send it to us, we build from there. If we build a product catalog program, product search and product catalog, based on audio, image, video, text. Yes?
We just saw an example on normalization on machine learning. So the pilot load, what kind of validation it does? Does it do a clustering model or regression?
None of those. It's a large language model.
So
we don't use any of those models here.
So those are basically traditional models. And
I explained to you in the beginning, correct? Like clustering, association, anomaly detection, regression model. These are all traditional model. This is not done any of those models.
This is just LLM.
It is purely LLM. We train the LLM. The education one is this LLM. We build it. Okay, that's our own LLM. That's the one we sold it for a company in Singapore. Answer is yes. You can look at the history, not a problem. You can maintain the state both. There is an option, short and long-term memory. Short memory means that any conversation state that you have with the model, it will be retained for the session. Let's say I want to retain the session for a longer period of time. Why? If the same question answered by somebody else, right? I don't want to reprocess everything. I can take the same question and respond back to you in the same context, in the same level of things I expected. So in that way, the conversation or the context or the answer or the question or the response, everything will be stored in the long-term memory, and we can retrieve from there. All right. No. In this case, it's a product. Actually, it is fully customized. It is customized based on the user login. When a student logs in, it understands who's logging in, and it also tracks the student's activity, movements, and everything on a day by day. Based on that, it takes its own decision. When I say own decision means the level of complexity of the question, the student's learning potential, etc. All those things are not programmatically controlled or instruction driven. It is self-learning. It makes its own decision. It's a reasoning. So we do a check in terms of the content generated by the human or a machine. We have an algorithm. We take the content box. Let's say I am asking you to submit an assignment. You went and looked at GPT and generated content, correct? So we have pattern that analyze that one. How you as a student has been writing so far, and how these answers are graded. So based on that, we will take a judgment. We will actually sometimes it will send it to the management saying like this is what happens, right? Yes, we track everything. It's behavioral pattern. So we look at the students' learning behavior and everything, and based on that, their answers will be evaluated and determined whether it's a human written or a machine written, and how it's being generated, all these answers for the questions.
So, yeah, I understand the concept of everything, but how does it financially be viable for any institution?
So this is
because you're looking at 100 students, they are keep on generating data.
So this is yes. I'm not doing this for financial aspects. We actually sold the algorithm to one of the universities. They are using it actually. Okay, so that is a public entity. It is run by the government. So they are using for their schools and colleges across Singapore. Correct. So I'm not owning this product anymore. We actually built the algorithm, and they wanted to use this, and we sold it.
And it's extendable.
At this point, I'm in a non-compete. I can't do anymore. Okay, it is.
I mean, not you, but
Yeah, of course. Sky's the limit. There's nobody stopping you, correct? Like you see, correct? Things are changing overnight, correct? We all thought like GPT is doing wonders. Then other models came into the picture, like Claude from Anthropic, correct? That the people who left OpenAI, they started another company, Anthropic. They built their own models, Claude, correct? Now China has been very closely watching these things. And then they came up with their own model, DeepSeek. This is a very volatile at this phase, correct? So much evolving, so much things are happening actually. There's no limits, correct? Anybody can build anything, correct? So if you have an idea to build a personalized education, absolutely, no question.
this one is just built out of before.
No. So this is our own model. We train this model.
Okay, but on top of existing.
It interacts with any to. If you look at it, we use a concept called LLM as a judge. What is LLM as a judge does actually? Instead of just relying on one LLM, how could I make sure actually I get response from multiple people and choose the best one? In that context, we interact with other LLMs too. Like for example, if you want to get your car fixed, you ask for something that your house is broken, right? So some construction work to be done in your house. What you do, typically you ask for quotes from different vendor, and you choose the best vendor, correct? Based on your criteria. You look for reviews, you look for the cost, you look for the prior experience, so on. So you choose. So that concept was being implemented. It's called LLM as a judge. When we get a response from our model, we send to other LLM, see how they are responding, and choose the best one. Okay. So in that way, there is no disagreement with the users, right? Who's going to use this one, right? So we also provide the evaluation score on which how this was done. I'll do the demo on all of those things you'll understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically specific to the customer solution for education sector as I see it.
Education, just an example I picked up. It could apply for anything. Okay? So you ask a question, you're getting a response. What is the authenticity, or what tells you that answer is more relevant and accurately given to you? And how do you put this in front of public, correct? So doing between you and I is different, correct? Putting this something in front of public, correct? That's a big deal, correct? That's not just like this, correct? So it could be leading towards legal issues, correct? People can sue you, people can take you to the courts, correct? So we need to protect all of those things. That is where things we talked about, correct? The concept of observability, evaluation, human in the feedback loop, LLM as a judge, guardrails, all these things will come into the picture, correct? So those things we have not talked about it. All of those things will be part of your solution. Once we have everything in place, I'm sure you will understand better.
I'm sorry for asking too many questions. So
No.
are you guys creating a parallel model as such?
For me, in this
For
one,
the industry, you're saying like GPT-4, Grok.
in my research, current research, I'm not doing anything actually. I'm more focused on industry right now. So I do work on some capacity in different forms and different things, more focused on guardrails. When I say guardrails means, when you are putting a system in front of public, how do you control, how do you protect this one from all aspects? And that is a research area that I'm working on.
What is the way to verify accuracy of data? Do you have metrics around that?
Yes, it's called evaluation matrix, correct? We do that function. So at a different level. At the question level, is this question relevant to the context on which it's been asked? Second, the response that what you're getting, is the response relevant to the question as well as the context as well as the knowledge base? The next is knowledge base. When it's a knowledge base means, to answer the question you are saying that use this knowledge base, right? We check that too. Is this knowledge base really one has the answers to these questions? Like this.
Okay, maybe final question, sorry guys. So how do you compare with other models in terms of, let's say...
So technical details, it takes more time.
Okay.
People will get bored.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay? That you and I take an offline, we can talk about it.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is in order to compare the response actually, so we have a template which is basically like in a vector database, we store all the responses, correct? So if I'm asking a question, I get a response, like I said, the response will be stored both two level. Short term, long term. Short term means only in the session, right? Long term means if the feedback is good, everything looks good, we don't want to reprocess this one, we can generate this one, we store in long term, right? So when a model sends a response back to me, we store in the vector database. When our model comes back, it does a vector database, and we do a similarity search, right? The similarity search is going to bring back same close to each other, then we are confident. There are metrics to look at. All right, so yes, sir. Oh, sure. Yes. Sorry about that, actually. No, it's a good suggestion, actually. So the question was, when you send a response, let's say the concept is called LLM as a judge. Instead of asking ChatGPT, get a response and live with that, how could we interact multiple LLMs, ask the same question, see which response is best? So this concept is called LLM as a judge, and that is what we implemented in the demo that what we looked at. Our demo, it's just not only based on one model, it's based on a multiple model. The question is, how do you compare these responses and evaluate and choose the best response? I said it is a bit technical, people will get bored. There are two key concepts I explained. One is called vector database, which is basically storing this one, and the memory, storing the response in a short and long-term memory. And third is semantic search, how the search is going to perform based on a response that is generated across multiple models. So those, I said we can take it offline, we can work on it. But the idea behind in that question, so there are three key areas that you could focus on: vector, embedding, semantic search, correct? So these things would help you to understand in terms of how do we rank and filter content and generate content, whether it's from LLM or some other sources, etc. All right, any other questions? Hold on. Your voice is not, I'm not able to hear you. Again, I'm sorry.
Any type it maybe?
Oh, this app, it's actually the initial one was, it's more of an algorithm. That's what we did. Actually, it took about close to 2 years, I would say. The demo that what you looked at, it is nothing. It could be done maybe in a matter of 2 weeks. Okay. The actual model building, the algorithm what took about close to 2 years. This application that what I just demonstrated here, it's just less than 2 weeks. If you follow the lab that I sent it to you, the lab is letting you to build these apps. And then we have given it an OpenAI key for you to use this tool. Yes, please. Yes, I can explain to you. I understand what you're asking. So the question is, how does the model knows the student is average, bright, above average, top performer, etc.? That is one context to look at it. Second, did we train the model by using these type of like content? Average means it's going to be like this, medium means it's going to be like this, bright means it's going to be like this, right? So did we provide any sample content? Answer is yes to both. Okay, so we trained the model with a lot of content as well as sample answers that we got from the university that whom we worked on. And the second one is, over a period of time the model learns and understands, so it becomes self-sufficient by itself. It determines based on the student's interaction. So in this case, the point to consider, all this happens inside an LMS, learning management system. So that means this is not like a ChatGPT where you can publicly go and ask questions. This determination of how students are performing and the determination of what type of question, the level of complexity, the level of details to be provided or given by the student, it's all self-determined based on the students interacting with the LMS. So it's a product, it functions inside, everything functions inside the product, and everything tracked and managed inside the product by itself. So it self-learns by itself. All right, any other questions? Can you come close to the phone, speaker, or can you talk a little loud? Yes, I can. Can you put the question in the chat window, please? Sorry. There's 99 questions there. How do you decide which LLM responds correct or not actually? Okay, so that's a good question actually. We have an evaluation matrix. Internally we look for each LLM, correct? So such as context relevancy, answer relevancy, faithfulness, etc. Okay, we have different evaluation criteria matrix and we apply them, choose whichever score higher. Whichever scores higher, and that's the one we recommendation. In a practical world, we also bring human in the feedback loop. Maybe after the break, I will bring the demo. You could understand a little more closer to these concepts. Correct? So, answer to your question. So this is the concept called matrix-driven development approach. Okay, it's called matrix-driven development approach. So this is not a traditional software engineering. You define the acceptable matrix and then run the model against those matrices and see which model creates the highest score. And whichever model creates the highest score, and that's the one we use this one. I'll try to show you as a demo so that we can conceptualize and understand this better. Yes, there are libraries available. So the one most commonly people use actually is called Phoenix from a company called Arise. And there is a lot of other metrics as well actually, so people use them in order to evaluate the LLM's response and other things around LLM. Yes, there are libraries available. And also Lance Smith, one other library people use. And there are many other libraries available in the market. Okay, any other questions? Alright, let's take a break. So we'll take a 15 minutes break, we'll be back. And we will start with this concept of the LLM as a judge, evaluation, observability. I think a lot of these things are kind of confusing for you. Maybe you'll get more clarity once we look at it. Alright, thank you very much.